Hey there, Dan Rother, top student athlete recruiting. There's been a bombshell in recruiting for Division One. It's going to affect every division, all sports. But today I'm going to tell you how it's going to affect soccer. But I kind of got to explain some things first. But the House first NCAA settlement, which just occurred the last couple of weeks, and it's still kind of unknown exactly how it's going to look, is going to allow student athletes to get paid at the NCAA Division One level, and profit share. So profit share based on ticket sales, TV rights, all those different things. The money is coming from revenue sports, right? Sports that are making money. Football and basketball primarily are the ones making big money at most schools. Some don't even have those two sports making money. So some might think this is great for college athletes, but soccer not being a revenue sport, it might only be great for those that play soccer at colleges with big time football and basketball programs. With the settlement, every college sport will now have roster limits imposed. That was not the case before. They have to have roster limits imposed, and if they can afford it, they can give out more scholarships. Schools can give as many scholarships out as roster spots. But the challenge is if they can afford it, like I said. So right now, men's soccer has 9.9 scholarships. It's increasing to that's the max the school can give. It's up to the school to decide how much they can afford and how much they want to give. So there's a school out there I know that gives one scholarship. That's all they can afford. In regards to um, women's soccer, it's 14 scholarships currently. It's going to increase to 28. So men's are going from 9.9 to 28, almost, two-thirds more. Women, 14 to 28. Now, the only ones I see really be able to afford that are maybe the Power Four, Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12. But even then, I don't know if they can afford it. We don't have all the answers yet, but let me explain how this will affect soccer. Again, currently there are no roster limits. So we see some teams have 35, 40. I was watching ESPN Plus last night, first games of the women's college season. I saw benches with 40 or 30 players on the bench plus 11 on the field, 41 type players on the field. So now they have to reduce their roster to 28. So we're going to see there are currently some schools that are 28 or less, but most schools carry 30 to 35, I would say. So limiting them to 28 is going to be a challenge. They're going to recruit less players. They might seek the transfer portal. Again, at first, it seems positive, right? 28 scholarships. It's great. More scholarship funding for every sport. You're going to see football is going from 85 full ride opportunities to 105. Well, guess what? Football is probably going to give those out. They used to still carry 120 some guys on football, maybe more than that, but they had 85 scholarship players, and then the rest were walk-ons. They might earn scholarships later. Next year, they can go up to 105 scholarships, but that's all they can have is 105. Again, not all colleges or conferences can afford this. So the rich get richer, and it could be crippling for many programs out there. Those with big time money, big time football, basketball, they can afford more scholarships, but many cannot. And the gap is going to grow from between those that can afford it and those that can't. So you're going to see that teams that can afford a big jump in scholarships, they're going to get better and better and almost see like mini pro teams. And then you're going to see, Division One schools that can't afford this, that may still have one scholarship. And can they even be on the same field? Are they both still Division One? I don't know how that looks yet. I don't think they know how that looks yet. And then how does the Title IX play into this? A college must have the same opportunities for women that it does for men. And because football is such a big sport, we may see schools have to not give out more scholarships in men's soccer. Maybe they have to drop men's soccer. They might have to drop women's soccer. Might be massive budget cuts because of this, and decide not to have certain sports, especially ones that aren't revenue and not bringing in money. So we're going to see some big changes. The transfer portal is going to go crazy because there's going to be, if there's 40 players on a roster somewhere, those players are going to have to go somewhere next year when the limit comes down to 28. So we're going to see even more activity. And I've written some articles about the transfer portal and how it's impacted, uh, true freshman recruiting, because coaches are going after older players and they're experienced. And, so make sure you can look at that article. But this is going to cause a ripple effect across divisions, right? We're going to see smaller Division One rosters, and it's going to mean, you know, if the top Power Five team, Power Four team carried 35, well, those 7 players are going to have to go somewhere else, right? Maybe a lower level Division One, maybe a Division Two or Division Three, and it's going to make recruiting at those levels even more challenging, and it's going to make the level of play, which I thought already was really, really good at Division Two and Division Three, and definitely understated. It's going to get even better, right? So those levels were underrated to begin with, and they're going to get even tougher. So a lot remains unknown. We might see a new division formed. We might see a one AA for all sports. Division one AA that doesn't follow that same rule. We might see teams have to change to Division two or Division three or NAIA just because they don't want to play in that game anymore. Like I said, will colleges drop their soccer team? We don't quite know yet. I do know this: coaches are taking a pause on recruiting. I've talked to a lot of Division One coaches, um, and they may have signed some kids or committed some kids already for 2025 and 2026. But the rest of it, because this just came out a couple weeks ago, they're taking a pause and sitting back and going to see what happens. What's their school going to decide to do? What's the what's the ramifications of this for their conference? How is this all going to play out? So they know how many kids they need to recruit and things like that. They don't want to over recruit. They don't want to lead somebody on. So they're kind of taking a pause. So if you're in 2025 or 2026 or someone in the future, we don't know exactly how this looks. I'm going to do a big webinar on it next week and a full length video about this. But I know this recruiting just got a lot more challenging. There's less roster spots and maybe less college soccer available at Division One. It means more competitiveness for recruiting at that level and all levels. Hopefully, that information, gives you some insight into what's going on at the NCAA level and recruiting. As always, it's important to cast a wide net and reach out to a lot of coaches at all levels. But I think it's even more important now. So, if you do have questions, you want to reach out, feel free to contact me, Dan Roth.